Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another live episode of the Format Podcast. Yes. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it if you're here. Gonna have my main man Eugene here. He was here with me last week. We had some good content, and this week we're gonna do the same, but we're gonna do it better. So we're definitely gonna talk about it. Got some awesome topics on tap for you. So stick with me. But before we get to all that, if you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, please go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell. Make sure you're notified whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast and you haven't already, please open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, please give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And remember, put it on your calendar, set it on your phone, set an alarm, whatever you got to do every week, every Saturday evening here at 7 p.m. We're going to be doing these live shows, and it's ready to go, man. I got some good stuff for you today, so let's make it happen. All right, G, what's going on, my man? Welcome back.
Bruce, how's it going, man?
Maintaining, brother, maintaining. So let's get right to it, man. We got some good topics today. So we're gonna start with NBA, y'all. And just so you know, this whole show is not gonna be NBA, but trust me, you'll enjoy it. So we are gonna start with NBA, and of course, when you start with NBA, where do we start? We start with the face of the NBA, right? LeBron James. And hey, people going to say, oh, all you talk about is LeBron James. All you talk about is LeBron James. Well, y'all tell me he's the greatest of all time and he's the face of the league. So, of course, we got to talk about him, right? Now, check this out. You hear a lot of stuff about LeBron from the mainstream media, right? We hear about him being in the GOAT debate. Most people, if they don't have him as the greatest of all time, they have him as the second best player of all time. And you hear, like I always say, people talk about LeBron like he walks on water and heals the sick and raises the dead and all this nonsense, right? And yes, he's an all-time great player. He's had an all-time great career. But there's a lot of players out there who don't believe it. A lot of former players, a lot of current players who don't see LeBron the way Clutch Sports wants us to see LeBron, the way LeBron wants us to see LeBron, and of course, the way the mainstream sports media wants us to see LeBron, and the way the NBA wants us to see LeBron. They just don't. And it's funny, right? Because the way they talk about LeBron, they want you to think he's flawless. But when I talk about him and I give the truth about him and I kind of open up and I explain, hey, well, this is that and this is that, they say, oh, you a hater. All you want to do is tear another black man down and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I'm a hater. Oh, that's interesting. So I guess because I'm a hater of LeBron, that makes all y'all who call me a hater, that makes y'all lovers, right? I know. You're going to say, oh, that's corny. But guess what? If I'm a hater, y'all love him. And it's wild because you have grown men out here twerking it up and acting stupid and ready to jump all over LeBron, and all this. Grown men acting like fools. For instance, let me give you an example, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. But let me give you an example.
Buzzer sounded. There was a little bit of an incident here courtside at the Crypto.com arena. Dylan Brooks was having words with Shannon Sharpe, Hall of Famer and broadcast.
And you see Steven Adams comes over to protect his guy along with the supporting cast. And then Shannon Sharpe still talking. And T. Morant, John Morant's dad, comes over. Had an opportunity to talk to T. Morant. And he said, my blood pressure didn't go up a bit. Nothing but love and respect for Shannon Sharpe. It's a bunch of guys talking a bunch of trash.
Now, Mark Jackson said it right at the end of that clip. None but love and respect for Shannon Sharpe. And that's a fact. What he's been able to do, first as a player in the NFL, becoming a Hall of Famer, and then in his post-playing career as a broadcast guy and being involved in all of this, and Club Shay Shay and Nightcap and ESPN First Take and was it FS1 Undisputed, all the success he's had, all the love in the world to that dude. However, that dude is like mid-50s, got 2 replaced hips. And if you remember that game last year, he was out there really ready to fight over LeBron because I think he said something to the effect like LeBron scored in that game against the Grizzlies and he yelled something like too small, I think, to Dylan Brooks. And then Dylan Brooks said something back to him and he's out there really ready to fight. And then you saw John Morant's dad and they was ready to get into it, to the point that Shannon Sharpe really had to come back on TV the following morning and apologize for his behavior. Grown man. but I'm a hater, right? But y'all don't see nothing wrong with grown men acting like this, right? Earlier this week on ESPN First Take, Shannon Sharp and Kendrick Perkins were literally yelling at each other, arguing about who has been a LeBron supporter for longer. I'm not going to use the word I want to use, but I'll just say who's been riding LeBron for longer. Like, that's absurd to me. Grown men. Kendrick Perkins in his mid-40s, Shannon Sharp in his mid-50s, and they literally arguing on TV, national TV, about who loves LeBron more. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. So anyway, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because Dr. J is one of the all-time great basketball players, NBA, ABA, right? And Dr. J was recently being interviewed by NBA reporter Chris Haynes, and Dr. J, like many of the all-time greats and some of the players today, did not have LeBron James in his top 5 all-time players. And so Chris Haynes, I guess he was astounded by that, because being a younger journalist and a mainstream media guy, he can't conceive of how anybody can act like LeBron James is not God. But here's what Dr. J had to say about that. So let's check that out, and then we'll come back and we'll get G's thoughts on this.
When you look at, LeBron and, anybody he sort of picks with him to be, playing with so many guys, he's the guy who has led the charge in terms of super teams being put together. Yeah. When he put together a team in Miami, he put together a team together in Cleveland as well, and put together a team in Los Angeles or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he could pick his own team. I ain't gonna pick his team. Right there. Not bad about LeBron.
Yeah, I'm not saying LeBron would argue, because I know he probably come back to me, but he will argue that these super teams always existed. If you look at all the championship teams, they've always had 2, 3, or even sometimes 4 All-Stars.
Players weren't picking their own teams. When Kareem got traded for 4 players from Milwaukee to Los Angeles, that was management's deal. That wasn't his deal. And when he and Magic and Worthy got together, they got together because they traded for Kareem. They drafted Magic the next year. They already had Worthy, Paul Wilkes, or whatever. So so they were a super team. And
so, G, before I get to you, one thing I want to point out real quick. Now, notice what Chris Haynes said when he kind of pushed back on Dr. J's sentiments about LeBron not being in top 5 and picking his own team. He said, LeBron is probably going to come back to me. Now, when I talk about LeBron and his team controlling the narrative and controlling the media all the time, again, you a hater, you trying to tear another black man down. But we are hearing right there that he's literally trying to control the media. So I'm going to go ahead and get off my soapbox now. Give me your thoughts on what Dr. J said and some of your thoughts about what I said earlier in terms of, all the nonsense with LeBron and grown men.
All right. So the whole Kendrick Perkins and Shannon Sharp romance, or whatever you want to call it, them going back and forth.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of common. Like you said earlier, LeBron, anytime you mention LeBron, that's a sound bite. His name is going to ring. A lot of people will be attracted to any commentary that LeBron that has or includes LeBron. That's why it's it was a no-brainer for Dr. J to bring it up. I did a small study in the cigar lounge the other day where I had a couple of my buddies give me their top 5 in their prime, and 2 out of the 3 didn't have LeBron in their starting 5. So
okay,
it started to get common where people see, he's a super role player. He can dominate. He can dominate the game. Ways we haven't seen.
Okay,
but he definitely need help doing it. Like, he's not a one-man show. Yeah, I would call him a glorified Scottie Pippen, without the defense. So he plays hard enough to turn the tide on the court. But man, I don't understand the bromance. How everybody is just so pro LeBron. I mean, it's just a different caliber of player, right? Like that clutch gene. I mean, we went through a few years where he was blowing layups at the end of the game. And so, that's my views. Dr. J wasn't wrong for saying, "Oh, I don't want him in my top 5, or I'm not going to put him in his top 5." That's his choice. But if if you're talking about just this era, like how can you not?
But yeah, but I think when they asked Dr. J, I'm sure they asked him like all time, not just this era. I would assume that it was all time.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever asked you this. What do you have your top 5 all time?
Man, it depends on the day of the week.
Okay.
You know, some days I'm in killer mode, you know, and I'm like, wow, like just for instance, I just looked and like a lot of people don't put John Stockton in their top 5.
I wouldn't.
He leads the league in assists.
By far.
Huh?
Yeah. By
far, yeah. But people won't put him in their top 5.
I wouldn't though.
Yeah. I just look at Flash. We can do that another show. Yeah,
I got you. So it's interesting that you brought that up. Like right before we got on the show, I was looking at some other stuff, and it came across my phone. I don't know how recent this was, but Bruce Bowen put out his top 5 players of all time, and I thought it was interesting that his are number 1, Michael Jordan, number 2, Kobe Bryant, number 3, Bill Russell, great Bill Russell, number 4, Magic Johnson, number 5, Tim Duncan. Now, I'm not mad at that top 5. It's not my top 5 all time, but I'm definitely not mad at it. When you got, obviously, I got Jordan number 1. So I'll just my top 5 is in this order is Mike, Magic, Kareem, Larry Bird, and then Hakeem Olajuwon. That's my top 5 all time. So I mean, I totally get it, and obviously, you know, Bruce Bowen playing with Tim Duncan and then being so close to the Spurs organization for all these years and watching what he's been able to do and how he pretty much dominated the league as a non-flashy player for so long, you got to give it up to him. Tim Duncan's in my top 10, but he's not in my top 5. And again, I'm not mad at Bruce Bowen's top 5 at all, because I guess the argument would be if we see Michael Jordan as basketball perfection, and we often hear that Kobe Bryant is the closest thing we'll ever see to Michael Jordan, if you want to put him at number 2, that makes logical sense. So I totally get that. I've heard Chauncey Billups say that Kobe Bryant is the most skilled player that he's ever seen. I don't think I would completely argue that either, man, because Kobe could just, I mean, he could do, his package was incredible, you know. He could do it all, from athleticism to skill set, to his moves, to his footwork, all of it. Like, Kobe was not missing anything. What do you think of Bruce Bowen's top 5 players all time?
It's just the top 5. Like, now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like, all right, well, what drove you to make those players your top 5?
Me?
Yeah. Was it off of stats or just favorite players?
So when I look at top 5, it's less favorite players. So there's a couple of there's a few different things that go into it for me. It's statistical production, it's winning, it's eye test in terms of skill set, it's you know, how you play both sides of the ball, and then obviously, you know, how you can or cannot impact your teammates. So obviously Michael Jordan, like we said, most people view him basketball perfection. I look at Magic Johnson and I say, this is a guy that, and I've said this for years, if I was tall enough and I was in shape and I played with the Lakers, I could average 5 or 6 off the bench. You just got to run and he's going to find you. He can make anybody better. I think he's clearly the greatest floor leader in the history of the game. And for those who want to argue, like I got a homeboy and he argues, you know, Kareem this, Kareem that. And I'm like, yes, Kareem, all-time great. But we keep forgetting Kareem was in LA for 5 years before Magic got there and couldn't even get out of the conference. Magic Johnson arrives and instant championship. You know what I mean?
I'm definitely ready to share my top 5 now.
All right. Go ahead, man.
Based off of how you picked yours. So Mike, Cole.
Okay.
Melo.
B more.
AG,
Okay.
Shaq.
Who was your 4th?
Kevin Garnett.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's your top 5.
That's my top 5.
That's your top 5.
Yeah.
I don't even have Melo and KG in my top 10. And I think they're both incredible players. I think Melo didn't win enough. And I think he didn't really, to me, it seems like Melo didn't win enough. And he also didn't, he didn't even attempt to play defense. And so that kind of bothers me. Like, that's why, like, you know, Kobe, I'm cool with. KG, the two-way guys, I think, are big. Danny, I feel you. And let me comment on this real quick, G. Kareem did win a championship without Magic, but he won that with Oscar Robertson, right? So he won those championships that he won were with arguably, two of the top 5 or 6 point guards of all time. And don't get me wrong, especially back then, if you're a big, you needed somebody to get you the ball. So I get it. But, you look at Kareem, he's winning MVPs and he's not getting out of the conference. I mean, but then again, it's a regular season award, but so Danny, you must have missed it. Let me repeat that for you. My top 5 all time in this order is Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Hakeem Olajuwon is my 5th. So, and not to disrespect anybody, but that's just how I see it. But yeah, so back to Dr. J. I just thought that was so interesting that Dr. J is another guy who doesn't see LeBron where so many people want us to see LeBron. And the fact is, it's the same thing we always talk about. LeBron tried so hard to grease the skids and do it the easy way. And people just don't respect that. Modern players don't respect it. We talked about Jeff Teague with that the last week. The all-time greats from the past don't respect it. We see Dr. J telling it. We've heard, as great as LeBron is, we've heard Reggie Miller say it. We've heard all these guys say it like, yo, we're not doing that, right? I mean, Larry Bird has said that, and I'll give him his credit. Larry Bird is almost humble to a fault. He said that, LeBron is one of the greatest we've ever seen. He's incredible. But at the same time, he said, if I want to win, I'm going to play with Kobe. If I want to have fun, I'm going to play with LeBron. Like, that says something, does it not?
Yeah, 2 different positions, but yeah.
Right. But think about it. We know what was Bird about. Bird wasn't about stats. Bird wasn't about none of that. Bird was about, I'm trying to beat you. I'm trying to win, right? And so he understands that. But yeah, so getting back to it, yeah, so Dr. J is just another example of another all-time great who doesn't have LeBron where they want us to have him. Bruce Bowen is a guy who's not an all-time great, but played in the league for a long time and doesn't have LeBron where they want us to have him. At what point are these LeBron fans who are out here acting crazy all the time going to realize that no amount of media and narrative control is going to make LeBron more than what he is? No amount of padding stats is going to make LeBron more than what he is. Be satisfied. You've had an all-time great career. Many people think you're a top 5 guy. A lot of people think you're a top 2 guy. A lot of people think you're the GOAT. A lot of people don't. It's going to be what it's going to be. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll move on from that.